I was fastening the tiny clasp on the necklace my mother gave me the day I rang the NASDAQ bell when my phone lit up on the dresser. The dress I'd chosen was the soft black one that always made me look like I was trying to be good. My parents had insisted on dinner in Brentwood, just the three of us, to talk about the future, in that tone you use with donors and strangers. For the first time in months, I let myself imagine the smallest version of a truce. The text sat there like an alarm with opinions. Call me now, no hello, no punctuation. At Mason Field. I felt my stomach tighten, as if a hand had closed around it. I tapped his name. He picked up on the first ring, his voice already trimmed of anything unnecessary. Avery, he said, not wasting a syllable. They filed this morning. What did they file? My mouth was dry. I reached for the glass on the dresser and missed on purpose. Petition for temporary conservatorship, he said, Los Angeles Superior Court. Ex parte request for a temporary guardian of your person and the state. Hearing set for next week. They're asking the court to freeze your access to company accounts until then. My coat slid from my hands and landed on the hardwood with a sound too gentle for what it meant. You're sure? I'm reading it, Mason said. Affidavits from both of your parents, Marcus and Celeste, plus supporting statements from the CFO and one outside director. They're saying you're decompensating under stress and unable to exercise sound judgment. The apartment seemed to tilt, just slightly. On the kitchen island, a pink bakery box from Jones on 3rd sat looking absurd. Raspberry tarts I'd bought on the way home because nostalgia is a terrible negotiator. I had imagined my mother laughing that light laugh she uses when she wants you to believe she remembers you. Taking a tart, saying something gentle about starting over. They planned this, I said. It wasn't a complaint. It was a fact finally allowed to stand without makeup. Yes, Mason said, and they're moving quickly. We answer immediately. I want your physician letters tonight if we can get them, and I need you to start pulling clean performance metrics. 3 years, no charts I'd be embarrassed to show a judge. I stared at the necklace in my hand like it was a tool I didn't remember how to use. I was supposed to be there at 7, I said. Ridiculous in the way you recite a schedule while your house is on fire. Don't go, he said, and even that sounded like a filing. Come here. I've got a copy of the petition. We draft, we file, we keep your banks from panicking. The drive down San Vicente felt like the city had decided to be generous about green lights. I parked in a garage that always smelled like summer tires and money and took the elevator to Mason's floor. His office is all brick and old law bugs and a window that pretends Los Angeles is a calm idea. He had the folder open on the table when I walked in. White paper, a red tab, the kind of document weight that doesn't come from paper. Read, he said, and I did, even though I wanted to throw the whole thing out the window. The caption hit first, in the matter of Avery Grace Langford, and then the language. Clinical, polite, erratic governance, emotional volatility, inability to manage complex financial decisions under pressure. The words tried to sound like they were protecting something. They were not protecting me. They had included a list of incidents, a strategy session where I interrupted my father. Marcus always pauses in a way that demands worship. An investor dinner where I left early after a migraine, a compensation committee meeting where I said no to an interim continuity package that would coincidentally pay my parents to advise while I stabilized. They got the CFO to sign, I said. I could practically hear Bradley's voice in the statement, that jaunty tone he uses when he is being a coward in a sentence. They didn't do this alone, Mason said. 2 minority investors filed letters of support for a temporary solution. They want your parents' last name on a letterhead while the market pretends to calm. I thought of the last 6 months in small cuts. My father finishing my sentences in meetings like it was a kindness. My mother telling a director over coffee that Avery's been overwhelmed in a voice that made concern sound like gossip with manners. A junior product manager saying, "I can explain your own model if that would help," cheeks pink with someone else's condescension. "I want medicals," Mason said. "You saw Dr. Chen last fall and Dr. Alvarez during that Q2 storm. Ask for letters. No cognitive impairment, fit to manage. And I want performance, revenue growth, margins, churn, enterprise renewals. And I'll need you affidavit. Tell the story without adjectives. We also need to be ready for them to go after the bank. I'll paper the institutions tonight." "What about the board? Do I call anyone?" "Not yet. They'll learn soon enough. If anyone reaches out, you refer them to me. And Avery." He waited until I looked up. "They're going to try to get you to fight inside their narrative. Don't. We write our own. We file it where narratives go to die." The folder sat between us, its corners too sharp for furniture. I closed it, stood, and felt my hands do the small tremor they do when my body wants to run and my brain refuses permission. Back in Santa Monica, my condo had the quiet all the expensive appliances try to call comfort. I set the bakery box in the fridge because I needed to do something that counted as care, even if it was for sugar. Then I pulled out binders like I was building a fort my parents couldn't enter. Medical first. Dr. Chen's evaluation from October. Alert, oriented, no evidence of neurocognitive disorder, decision-making capacity intact, executive function normal. Dr. Alvarez's letter from March. Sleep deficit noted at the time, now resolved. No axis I or II diagnoses, no medication, fit to perform complex executive duties. I texted both offices for fresh letters. Both replied within 10 minutes, because kindness and professionalism sometimes share an office. Then performance. I opened the dashboards that have been the map of my last 5 years. 3-year revenue, up and to the right in a way that would make any board member purr. Gross margins, widened by 3 points after we rebuilt the supply chain. Net retention, 124%. Customer churn, lowest in the sector. Enterprise renewals, a list of logos long enough to be heavy. I exported, printed, and stacked the pages in neat piles, my hands calming to the rhythm of the stapler. At 9, my phone lit again. A message slipped under my office door, from Cam Lewis. Cam is 25, sharp, too polite for this town. He hovered like a shadow at the threshold with a single printed page in his hand, the kind of trembling you try to smuggle past yourself. "I thought you should have this," he said, voice lower than the hallway. "Please don't say where it came from." He was gone before I could promise what I would have promised. I read the page. An internal memo, subject line, transition logistics. The sentences were exactly the length of cowardice. "Once interim authority is in place, bonus awards will be distributed accordingly. Thank you for discretion during this sensitive process. From Celeste Langford." Interim, not if. Awards, not recognition, not thanks. A purchase order for loyalty in soft font. I read it twice, then set it on the island and pressed my palm against it until my skin warmed the paper. For months, I had told myself I was overreacting, that small slights were circumstantial, that the way my parents paused after I spoke in meetings and then exchanged a quick, worried glance was habit, not instruction. There are only so many times you can talk yourself out of what is directly in front of your face before you become complicit. I slid the memo into a manila folder and wrote on the tab in thick marker, "Receipts." Midnight found me doing the strangest thing, watching a video of myself, the keynote at our partner summit last fall. 40 minutes without a note card, moving in a suit I'd bought when I needed to remind myself I could leave a room intact. Numbers lined up the way I asked them to. The story of how we had dragged a bruised product into something elegant. At the end, an applause I remembered as a kindness. Tonight, it was evidence. By 1 a.m., Dr. Chen had sent a letter I wanted to frame for reasons that had nothing to do with medicine, and Dr. Alvarez's reply landed with the kind of certainty you wish you could feel about anything else in your life. I printed both, slid them into sheet protectors like armor, and set them next to a stack of crisp charts. The binder started to look like a thing that could carry weight. I opened a clean document and wrote my affidavit the way I write roadmaps, unadorned. Name, age, position, background, founding Langford and Hale at 26, CEO at 31. Performance, revenue, margins, retention. Health, no diagnoses, evaluations attached. Narrative, a pattern of undermining executed in public with the tone of concern. I described no feelings. I used dates. I wrote, email from Celeste Langford, subject, transition logistics, and attached the email. At 2, the apartment was quiet in that Los Angeles way. No sirens, just a hum you think is the ocean if you need it to be. I stood at the window and watched the lone car push down Ocean Avenue, headlights like a metronome. I thought of my mother's text that afternoon, so excited to see you tonight. Just us. I thought of my father's voice when he says my name like it's an equation he's solving. And then I thought of the judge's clerks, the ones who will read my pages before anyone else does, and I felt my lungs agree to keep working. The next morning, I was in Mason's office at 8, wearing the suit that reminds me the floor will hold if I insist. He had already drafted our cross motions, to deny the temporary conservatorship, to deny any freeze, to sanction if the court felt spicy. He slid me a pen. He said to sign the affidavit. We file in 20. I've already messaged the banks. Do nothing until you hear from the court. Before we could leave, my office line buzzed with Jenna's voice. Your mother's here, she said, sounding like she'd stumbled into a play. And your father. I told her the truth. I told her I said no. I grabbed the binder, felt its weight like confirmation, and we headed for the elevator. In the lobby, we saw them. Not together, exactly, but in a way that looked like choreography. My mother wore cream like a weapon. My father's tie was Park Avenue Intermediate. He started to say my name. I kept walking. This was not a hallway for arguments. This was the space between the door and the place where arguments end. At the courthouse, the clerk's window looked like a bakery line for consequences. Mason filed with the practiced hands of a man who knows where gravity lives. The clerk stamped, slid the copies back under glass, and said in a voice I will probably hear at unhelpful times for the rest of my life, next. The next few hours moved in that peculiar court time that feels both fast and like you were being held in a bracket. The judge we drew is the kind people whisper about, unimpressed, allergic to theater. He listened to their lawyer recite concern like a lullaby, and he watched as they tried to make adjectives do the work of proof. Then he turned to Mason. Your Honor, Mason said, and I watched his words sit exactly where they were supposed to. We have physician letters confirming no impairment, 3 years of above-market performance, and a document from Celeste Langford outlining bonus payouts once interim authority is in place. That is not care, that is orchestration. The judge took the letters, the charts, the memo. He flipped through, face unlit. When he spoke, it was without ceremony. Temporary relief denied, no freeze. The matter will proceed in due course. He looked over his glasses at the other table. Allegations of this kind should not be used as an alternative to a proxy fight. We walked out without looking at my parents because I needed to remember what my face feels like when it isn't performing. Outside on Temple Street, the sun had the gall to be lovely. I stood there with the binder that had turned from object to doctrine and realized I was hungry for the first time in 24 hours. I bought a breakfast burrito from a truck that had a line of jurors and public defenders in the same 10 feet and ate it on a low wall, my dress behaving around me like fabric can be a decision. My phone vibrated. A message lit up. Unknown number. Stop. You'll regret this. I looked at the binder, then at the courthouse, then at the burrito. I smiled in a way that would have ruined dinner, and I typed back a sentence I was proud to have learned. Put it in writing and file it. Back home, I took the raspberry tarts out of the fridge and set them on the counter. I did not throw them away. I am not the kind of person who punishes food for someone else's betrayal. I peeled back the lid, ate one, and thought, blessed are the receipts. Then I turned to the next page of my plan. Board rules, audit committee charters, a list of directors who had said to my face they admired fortitude. I put sticky flags where courage would be required. I wrote Mason's number on the whiteboard, even though I know it by heart. I opened a new document and titled it, without a joke, Strategy for Removal of Marcus and Celeste from Any Role, Advisory or Otherwise. They had called this mercy. I would show them what mercy looks like when it is spelled with verbs: disclose, audit, remove. Then I changed out of the dress I had met for dinner and into jeans that let me breathe from the bottom of my lungs. Then I sat back down at the island, pulled the binder close, and kept going.